So welcome back. Another episode of Cleats Off the Couch. I am Delkery. It is great to have you all here. News out with the brand new finalized suspension for Deshaun Watson. I'm not somebody who's going to, do a bonus episode for every breaking news thing that happens in the NFL. One, I don't have the time. I don't have the capability. Maybe down the line, who knows? Who knows what comes of cleats off? But this is a big one because we've been talking about schedule predictions here in 2022, and the first division I did was the AFC North. And so if you've been listening so far, the very first episode was about the Steelers, who I am a fan of. And the last episode, was just about AFC North as a whole. And in that, we went off of not knowing where the suspension was going to fall. At that time, the NFL was really pushing for a full year suspension. And so with that, we now see that Deshaun has an 11-game suspension with a $5 million fine. And so with that, that means we're going to be looking at, 6 games of action with Deshaun Watson at the helm, right? Because week 9 is Cleveland's bye. I'm curious if it's 11 weeks or 11 games. If it's an 11-game suspension, does the bye week count? I'm not sure how. Somebody let me know. I'm not sure how that works. Regardless, if it's through 11 weeks, that means he's going to be back for Tampa, Houston, Cincy, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, and Pittsburgh. If it does not include the bye week and it is 11 games, that means their last game without him is going to be Tampa, which means it's going to be Houston, Cincy, Baltimore, New Orleans, Washington, and Pittsburgh that he's going to be back to play. So with this, my previous prediction, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't recall where I ended. I want to say I ended around the 7 wins, somewhere around there. Somebody correct me. I want 6 to 8 wins. Was that right? 7 wins was the prediction at the time. Deshaun Watson doesn't play all year. I think that's what we were at. But now, do I think this changes? Possibly. One of the things I've talked about in the past is how everybody has been jumping forward on the idea of if Deshaun is back, then that offense is unstoppable. If Deshaun is back, the Cleveland Browns are a playoff team. If Deshaun is back, yada, yada, yada. And one of the things I had brought up, and I still think is very important for us, I don't know the outcome of it, and neither do you. And that is, how will Deshaun Watson play when he comes back? How will he play? That's the real question right now that nobody has an answer to. We saw in the first preseason game at this point, he had a miserable, he did not look good. In my opinion, he did not look good at all. Now, he hadn't played for over a year. And again, my biggest thing is that I do not know of a single player who has taken an entire year off, come back, and played just as good, if not better than, when they stopped. I can't think of a single player. Will Deshaun be that? Or will he be like others who took a year off before and only come back maybe just about as good, but definitely not as good? Or definitely not as good. I don't know. My prediction is that he won't be the quarterback we saw in Houston. That's just again, based upon history, I don't think Deshaun comes back as the same quarterback he was in Houston. And that's not, yes, I'm a Pittsburgh fan, but this isn't anything about Cleveland. This is about a player stepping off of the field for over a year. And at this point, it'll be a year and a half, almost 2 full years, right? I don't know exactly the dates, but almost a season and a half, if not more, that he will not have played football, game time football. That's big. That's big. And so, I do think Cleveland has a great defense. I do think they have some great pieces on offense. We obviously know how important the quarterback position is. By that time in the year, do they trade to bring somebody in? Do they rely just on Jacoby Brissett and he doesn't get injury and he plays pretty solid all year? Do they go through 2-3 quarterbacks whether it's because of injury or because of play, whatever? I don't know. Nobody knows. We're just making predictions, projections, whatever you want to call them. I think at this point, when we get through that, I'm going to go back through. That's the reason for this time with this new announcement. I want to revisit to see where I think the Browns end up. They still play Carolina week 1. I still think Baker gets revenge. They get a loss in Carolina. And then they come home and play the Jets. That one I remember talking about can go either way. I'm going to give the win to Cleveland, though. First game at home, need to prove something, 1-1. And then Pittsburgh comes into Cleveland in week 3. I think Pittsburgh gets that win. I think they steal that win. I still stand on that. Deshaun won't be playing. We have that now. We know that now. So they start out 1-2. Then they travel to Atlanta. I think they can get a win against Atlanta. 2-2. And then they play the Chargers at home. The Chargers get the win. Chargers looking really good. Preseason so far looking even better. And same with the Vikings. So watch out. NFC North, huh? Predictions. We'll get the rest of the NFC North here soon. The Chargers get the win, make it 2-3. The Patriots come into Cleveland. That's one I remember talking about before, where either New England or New York can get a win between the Patriots and the Jets. So I gave a loss to the Jets, a win to the Cleveland for that game. This game, I'm going to give the win to the Patriots, a loss to Cleveland. So we're going to be at 2-4 to start the first 6 weeks. And then they travel to Baltimore. Baltimore, I think, gets the win, 2-5. Cincinnati back home. Cincy gets a win, 2-6. I really do believe we could be looking at a 2-6 season coming into the bye week for the Cleveland Browns. We could. They play the Bengals, the Ravens, the Chargers. Obviously, the Steelers games are always really difficult to play. The Panthers game, man, I just see Baker balling out. I can see 2-6. I can also see, let's be real, guys. I could also see 4-4. I really could. Do I see 6-2? No, I don't see that at all for Cleveland. But for this, again, beginning of the year, first 8 weeks, 2-6. Out of the bye week, they travel to Miami. Miami, underwhelming at times. A lot of promise, a lot of potential. I've talked a lot about that. I think Cleveland, if they're at a point where they're like 2-6 coming out of the bye, I can see them traveling to Hard Rock Stadium and getting a win. I can see that. I really can, especially the defense. So I'm going to give the win to Cleveland, making them 3-6, and then they travel to Buffalo. They don't win. They in Highmark, it's hard. It is hard in general to bet against the Buffalo Bills at home at any point in the season. Do I think the Buffalo Bills are going to go 17-0? No, I do not. I really don't. But can I, in good faith, make a prediction that the Bills are going to lose at home this coming season? It's really hard to do that. So here I've got Cleveland losing in Buffalo, which puts them at 3-7. And then Tampa Bay, if this is the first game back with Deshaun Watson, even if he doesn't play back at what he was, there's a lot of question marks with Tampa Bay right now. I still think they're the favorite to win the NFC South, but there's been a lot of injuries. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of things happening with Tampa Bay. I'm not so sure it's as clean cut. I do think Cleveland with Deshaun, even without Deshaun, could potentially get a win. They're at home. I'm going to give the win to Cleveland, guys. I really do think Cleveland can win big games. I do. And even if Deshaun plays at 3/4 of who he was, then he's still a top 15 quarterback, right? Because he was playing top 5 quarterback play when he was playing 2 years ago. So win over Tampa Bay, putting them at 4 wins, and then at Houston, they get a win there. That's 5. They get on a roll. They travel to Cincy. Do I think that Cleveland can get a win against Cincy? Yeah, I do. I don't see Cincinnati sweeping the AFC North. I had said in the Steelers episode that I think the Steelers will surprise in different places. The AFC North is one of the toughest divisions. I think second to the AFC West, and potentially the NFC West. But the AFC North, they could all split. It really has that kind of potential. And so I'm going to give the win to Cleveland here on a roll, end of season, trying to build something. I could see it. Or early on they win it against Cincy and then lose in Cincy here. I'm going to give the split there, which puts them at what, 6 wins? And then Baltimore, if Deshaun plays good football, again, I don't think he's going to be great. That's just my prediction right now is I think he comes back as a manageable quarterback, below expectations, because everybody expects the top 5 quarterback that he was. I still think he'll play pretty good football. But I think they'll split with the Ravens then. So earlier I gave them a win over I gave the Ravens the win, so I'll give the win to Cleveland here. Do I think Cleveland will put together 4 straight wins? That's hard to say against teams like Tampa, Houston. Okay, Houston. Against Cincy, Baltimore. Okay, New Orleans. New Orleans is one. They're looking nicer and nicer to me, especially if Jameis is healthy, playing like last year before his injury. That defense looks good. They've got tools on offense. I think the Saints could look pretty good, and I'm gonna give a loss to the Saints. A win over Baltimore, a win over Cincy, a loss to the Saints. The Saints are going to do better than I originally predicted them to do. In fact, I don't think I've done an episode with the Saints yet, so I haven't yet predicted them. I did it on TikTok Live before, but I haven't done it yet here on Cleats Off the Couch episodes. But I'm going to give a loss to the New Orleans Saints and then a win in Washington. And then to end the season, I think they can win in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh goes into Cleveland, grabs the win. Cleveland comes in, grabs the win in Pittsburgh. We deal with another year of annoying Cleveland fans. And by annoying, I mean specifically talking about whenever they get a win in Pittsburgh, it's this whole big thing. I mean, it's good for them. Good for any team that's able to go in somewhere and get a win, especially against a division rival. But do it for another 10 years or even 5 years before it becomes the thing of like, oh yeah, see, we own you. Well, 3 times in the past 3 years is good and all, but what about over the course of the past 15? So, but I do think they can get the win there, and I could see them getting a win out of, what is that, 6 out of their last 7 games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 out of the last 7 games. That could be a real possibility. Starting out 2-6, ending, what is that, 6-1? What does that put us at? 8-9 on the season. So that does improve them. My overall rating before, win ratio, I think, if I remember correctly, was 6 to 8 wins without Deshaun. I do think that bumps back up. I think it bumps up now to I said 8 wins, so a 7 to 9 win swing. Is it just because of Deshaun Watson? No. Again, I emphasize, I don't think he's going to be that great, but I don't think he's going to be that bad. Usually when you say one, somebody thinks you automatically think the other. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think it does improve the offense. It does improve the offense a little bit more. Obviously, we don't know what injuries will look like. We don't know what things will look like with any team that time of year. But I'm going to give Cleveland a new and updated 7 to 9 win total, which puts them right close to Pittsburgh as well. I had Pittsburgh at 7 to 9 or 8 to 10, right around that 9 and 8. I could see Cleveland doing that 8 and 9, 9 and 8 swing as well. But I'm going to go 7 to 9 wins with them now, with this new finalized understanding of the 11-game suspension with Deshaun Watson. We'll see what comes of it. I still have them at the 4th position in the AFC North. Again, one of the best divisions this year. So still 4th at 8 and 9 is still good. That's still pretty darn good. And but they and the Steelers will be right there fighting to stay out of the bottom of the AFC North, which will still be better than 2/3 of the AFC. So we'll see. We'll see if I'm right. I still have the Bengals at 1, the Ravens at 2, the Steelers at 3, the Browns at 4. But the Browns are up there itching now. They're up there poking the back of the Pittsburgh Steelers in my predictions. And earlier I had said the Browns in my prediction would have the opportunity in Week 18 to be able to cause Mike Tomlin's very first losing season. They'd come into that 8 and 8. and the Browns would come in this scenario, 7-8, or 7-9, or also 8-8, and I could now see a fight by the Browns to potentially get a win. Over that, and potentially, I know Cleveland Browns fans will love that. The idea of a Pittsburgh Steelers fan saying that there is potential, and again, I try to be as unbiased as possible in this. I hope this doesn't happen. I believe it won't happen, but it could happen, that the Cleveland Browns are able to, in week 18, give Mike Tomlin his very first losing record. Whew, that's tough to say. I will say this, after seeing the first Steelers preseason game, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Steelers are going to have a better season than even I am saying right now. I am being conservative compared to what I think the Steelers could actually pull off. But talking about the Browns, with the Deshaun Watson suspension, 7-9 wins. They scoot back up a little bit in my mock. And what do you guys think? Let me know. And I'll see you in the next one as we talk about the next division of football. We talked about the AFC North. We closed that out. This is a little addition to that, a little bonus. But next, we'll jump over to the NFC. I wasn't sure if I want to do this. We're going to do it. NFC North. We'll talk North football all together, and then we'll move on to the Easts from there. But I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. See ya.